Hello, Suchitra ma'am and Jeyamohan sir. Thank you so much. We're so happy to be talking to you at JLF for Purple Pencil Project. And just for everyone who's listening in, Suchitra Ramachandran is the translator of Eram Ulagam. Is that the correct pronunciation? Eram Ulagam, called in English The Abyss. I've read this, one of the hardest reads, and I've seen interviews of yours before where you said it's one of the hardest books you've written as well. But this is my first conversation with you, so I want to talk about language literature first. I realized, as I said it earlier before we started recording, that for me that loss came very late in life, almost when I was 23. I realized, oh, I have never read a Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi book, even though I'm very comfortable in those languages. As a writer of that language that is now being introduced to Anglophone readers, that is now getting a wider readership, do you feel that your place in the literary ecosystem is changing? Do you feel that that retrospectively that the divide was there between Tamil writing and stories and now this English speaking public and readership? Is there a loss? Something in Tamil did not quite get through to them? Is there a fear of misunderstanding? Are there those thoughts as you're being translated now?
I am writing in Tamil for more than 30 years. Now only my works are translated into English. I never took any kind of interest in translating my works into English because I felt that I am writing for Tamil people and I am addressing only Tamil culture. So it is quite natural. So my works are focused on Tamil culture and addressing Tamil reading public only. Any good creative work is like that. It is regional, sometimes it is sub-regional also. So being translated in English is entirely different thing. The work is now placed on the international audience. So Tamils are living in 7 countries: Malaysia, Singapore, South Africa, and the European countries, Sri Lanka. So now the work is available to them also. So now the reading audience, the reading public is entirely different. I don't know how they are acquainted with our culture. So not only a creative work translation is not only sufficient. More discussions on it is needed. More conversations are needed to discuss about the creative work, to make them understood by the younger readers. Yeah. So a Tamil reader is already know the cultural scenario of the creative work. But if a Gujarati reader reads Abyss, he needs more introduction to the work, more discussions to work. See, we can easily read Umberto Eco novel. An Italian background is well known to us. We can read an American work. We can read a Russian work, but we cannot read a Gujarati work. So I am understanding Gujarati culture through Ganesh Devi. Ganesh Devi is continuously talking about Gujarati culture. Through him, I used to read Gujarati literature. A lot of Gujarati works are translated into Tamil, but I need a connoisseur too. So we Tamils have not that kind of Tamil connoisseurs talking about Tamil culture and Tamil literature in English scenario. That's a major problem we are facing today. So anyway, translating our works into English is good. We are getting a little attention recently, but mainly my purpose is not writing for international audience. I am writing for Tamil audience only.
Is that changing now? That in your head, have you thought, what if have you thought of stories or has this new world that you have?
There's nothing called international. Which is regional is naturally become international. So there is nothing called international. There is no international reader. Every reader is rooted in his own culture. He is understanding other works through his culture. So you can say a Gujarati person living in Ahmedabad who has ultimately no root in Gujarat. How can you identify him? Is he international reader? No, he is a rootless reader. He is a not international reader. Yeah, American reader. An American reader is not an American. Is not an international reader. He is an American reader. And while visiting America, you can understand that every American reader is actually very rooted on his state. He is a Californian reader. He is a Colombian reader, not an American reader. So similarly, we have roots. We have to understand it. We have to fix ourselves in that culture. That's the way to understand an international text.
I want to, because you're the translator, and that exactly the bridge, the discussion is what you're creating. So I would love to hear.
No, the only thing I would like to add to that is what Sir says is absolutely correct. Work from a culture, a language is rooted in the culture, and that's why we read it. We want to learn about people who are different from us. We want to learn about values and ideas that is different from us. But there's something called the universality of human values, and that's also why we read literature, because we want differences, but we also want sameness. We want answers for the questions that beat in our own hearts, right? And in fact, the more rooted a work is, the more it is able to go into fundamental questions and values. And at that level, when it goes down to the level of the roots, they say about trees, right? The trees are, their canopies may be distant, but they're all connected at the roots. So at the level of the roots, our questions seem to be very similar, and that's why we read literature. So when it comes to translation, it's important to get two things right. One is the specific difference that makes that culture unique, and you need to find solutions for that. That's a craft level problem. But you also need to make sure that the values that the work speaks about palpate when you have the translation in front of you.
I love that. And like what you said, that you have to feel the sameness. You want to have words given to your emotions, to your experiences, and that's what language literature does. And I don't know how to say it without being discriminatory, but that is speaking. This is very little time for your body of work, so I'm going to restrict my questions to a few things I was very curious about as I read more about you. I always feel the pain that I will never read any great author's work in their language, all the whole body. So I have to do a lot of secondary research. My apologies. But one thing I was very interested about is that the Mahabharata you wrote on your blog, and you've been writing for 30 years. So I feel like your writing process, even the device you use, the medium you use, has changed. Even today I cannot write on a laptop as authentically sometimes as I write maybe on my texting or when I'm writing longhand. How did you kind of go into the seamless transition of the digital? How did that happen?
Tamil is the pioneer language in Indian languages, which is transferred itself into digital world. Tamil fonts are very simple, so we developed it very earlier period, and the majority of computer experts, software experts are from our land, so they develop a lot of text forms, there are a lot of softwares. So we entered into the digital world at 1999. I used to write in computer at 1999. So nearly 24 years I am writing in using computer, not hands. I cannot write by hands now. So I wrote my major novels by hand, but for the 24 years I am writing only in computer. So I cannot use my hands. So that's a major thing. And almost all major encyclopedias, dictionaries are available in internet in Tamil. So this is very helpful for making research today. So a lot of work, pioneer works are already done. So I am following that path. And we have readers As I said already, we have readers in 9 countries in the world. So the best way them to read is internet. Internet is easily accessible and it is cheap also. So I am a writer writing only in little magazines. So I wrote in little magazines which are published only a few copies, 500 copies are that. I run edited a little magazine, Sol Pudidu. We published only 1500 copies, but it is very expensive. Then the internet media came and the internet magazines introduced. So the internet magazine is very cheap. For the past 15 years, I am editing, or I am publishing a magazine on my name, Jeyamohan.in. It has nearly 1 lakh people visiting every day. It is being published. It is published every day. It is published every day, and nearly 1 lakh people visiting in my site. Yeah, and its expense is totally 3 or 4 lakhs in a year. So it is very cheap. So it is a newspaper, but it is very cheap. So we are using that facility. So I am writing Mahabharata. I wrote Mahabharata in my site. I published every day. We had a set of editors, 7 editors for that text. Everyone lives in every part of in the globe. One is in America, one is in Chennai, and another one is in Delhi. So they can edit their text every day because of this technical facility. So I wrote it 7 years, every day 1 chapter. So that's a facility given by technology major, and I'm using it very well. Because another major factor, I have to refer it, because the Google Books collection, it's nearly 1 lakh texts are available in Google Books, and you can actually in practice nearly a huge library is in your hands. You can make research in anywhere. So I made a research for my first major novel, Vishnupuram. I made a research for 10 years, but within 2 years I completed my research for Venmurasu, because all books are available in digital form. That's a huge advantage.
The loss also is equal because not enough Indian languages are being digitalized.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Which hopefully we can do something about. Speaking of translation and choosing the abyss, how this book, how it's such a difficult text to read, to immerse yourself in, to engage with. Can you talk a little about your journey with the book?
So May I start? Yeah. So I started translating the book at the behest of Tamil writer called R. Muthulingam. So he explicitly asked if I would do it, and when I read the book, I read the book for the first time a few years back, and at that point it was very hard hitting. I wasn't able to get into the book. But then when I read it, when he asked me to read it a second time, I realized that it was actually a highly positive work, and I was able to relate to it. There were aspects in it that I was able to identify with at the level of my own life. So then I realized this is something I would be able to do, and the next challenge was at the level of language, at the level of the craft. And it was a great exercise because it's a very polyphonic novel, and it's written in dialect. It's written in it weaves multiple languages together, and it creates its own language. So to render all those voices distinctly in English, and English is a great language because it absorbs all kinds of influences, but it also flattens some nuances and homogenizes it. So the task at hand was to create an English for me, and I had to push the limits of language to get there. So that was how it was. If I may take a minute more to align with your goals with the Purple Pencil Project, I'm also the co-founder of an organization called Mori. So very briefly, this centers translation, and circles back to the point that we were talking about earlier. That's what Sir said. It's not enough literary criticism. So the whole reason I think why there's not enough spotlight on literature in Indian languages, and each language has a very vibrant literary tradition. But what's spotlighted as Indian literature is mostly Indian writing in English, and to some extent some books which make it to these places, these festivals. So with Mori, what we are trying to do is to create a new breed of literary translators and critics, and to translate the existing corpus of literary criticism, fiction, and whatever represents the literary tradition in various languages, and to make one portal for it. Because the way we see it, if there's a person from a non-Indian country who wants to get a bird's eye view of Indian literature, there's no one place where you can find it today. I see. So we should talk more later. Yeah, but that's what we plan to do with Mori. So just wanted to mention this. Thank you so much.
Wishing you all the very best. I know we are short on time. I had so many more things to ask you, but we will cut it short and maybe like regroup later. But thank you so much for taking the time out. I hope you have a good time at JLF 2024.